Putin became very rich because at $100 a barrel, he's got so much money to fight a war. At $40 a barrel, he doesn't have the money to fight a war. But he wouldn't have done it anyway because I told him not to. So I just want to thank all of you for being here. I think it's a very big day for America. I think it's a very big day for liberty, and I think it's just a great day for this country. Again, I hope it's unifying like I think, but it is. It's a big step toward unification.
Meanwhile,
my larger reaction is disappointment. I do believe that states should be able, under our Constitution, to bar oath-breaking insurrectionists. And ultimately, this decision leaves open the door for Congress to act, to pass authorizing legislation. But we know that Congress is a nearly non-functioning body. So ultimately, it will be up to the American voters to save our democracy in November.
It looks like page 13 of this. It says, for the reasons given, responsibility for enforcing Section 3 against federal office holders and candidates rests with Congress and not the states.
Right.
The judgment of the Colorado Supreme Court therefore cannot stand. So they're saying essentially that Congress has to make this decision whether there are insurrectionists who need to be kept off of ballots. Is that essentially what they're saying here?
Essentially what they're saying is it's up to Congress to tell us how this works. So if Congress had, let's say 50 years ago, Congress had passed a law saying we're going to let the states do it, so long as they abide by due process, then what Colorado did would have been fine. But Congress has done essentially nothing in the 150 years since the 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868. Now, I want to make sure people understand this. It's a very important feature of this decision. There is no substantive discussion in here by the Supreme Court of whether Donald Trump did or did not engage in insurrection.
Interesting.
There is no conversation about what the meaning of his words at the rally were, or what happened inside the Capitol, or any of Donald Trump's actions. That's not what the Supreme Court has done here. That's not what the Supreme Court typically does. This is a procedural, legalistic decision. And essentially, if I had to boil it down to one sentence, it would be, it's up to Congress, not the individual
They didn't
states.
want a big messy situation where all the states go here and there and that sort of thing.
The word I circled in this decision is, quote, patchwork. They said, we don't want a patchwork where one state's doing one thing and another state's doing another.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, the mainstream liberal media, they are having a full-blown meltdown right now, okay? They are upset because the Supreme Court, the last institution in this country with some integrity, some sovereignty, they have decided to block Colorado from being able to ban Trump from the federal ballot. Now, in a nutshell, essentially what they said in a 9-0 decision is that if you're going to ban somebody from a federal ballot, then it has to be an act of Congress, which is something that, I mean, I've been telling you guys the whole time, right? Like, it just doesn't make sense, okay? I mean, they had an opportunity if they wanted to ban Trump from the ballot with the Senate trial that followed his impeachment, and they could have, if they found him guilty, banned them for life, okay? They could have done that. However, that did not happen in the Senate trial. Therefore, he is eligible, and the Supreme Court is essentially upholding that idea that, look, this is the job of Congress. It's not the job of the states to come out here and to pick and choose who they want to allow on federal ballots. That could create a very, very, very messy situation. And they essentially said, look, we're not going to allow this. And if you want to ban somebody, you got to get Congress to do it, okay? Which is the correct decision. And like I told you guys, the mainstream liberal media is not taking it well.
Notable that today is the day that the trial against Donald Trump for January 6th would have started, and instead we're talking about this Supreme Court opinion on the 14th Amendment, and we're not going to get to talk about that trial because the Supreme Court last week delayed it through at least April, the end of April. And so the Supreme Court will decide that case. I suspect very strongly that that case will be the inverse of this one, that it's a unanimous or close to unanimous loss for Donald Trump. Trump on the idea that he's absolutely immune. And assuming the Supreme Court can reach that decision quickly, and I sure hope they reach it as quickly as they reach this one, then the trial against Donald Trump for January 6th can proceed, and we can learn, the American public, with all the evidence splayed out in front of us, did Donald Trump commit insurrectionist acts on January 6th? That's the crucial question, and we, the American public, deserve to know the answer to that question and to hear all of the evidence before the election.
I understand.
One of the curious aspects of this decision is that they waited until the day before Super Tuesday to drop it. It puts the wind in Donald Trump's sails. He's already said it's a win. We'll hear a lot more from him. Why do that in the 24 hours before Super Tuesday, in the media cycle around Super Tuesday? I would not have done that. Feels too political.
You could argue that there was a responsibility by the court to do that. Otherwise, those who may have voted for him Tuesday would be disenfranchised if indeed the ruling had not come in his favor, surely. Isn't there an argument there?
That is an argument for having released this decision last week or the week before. The timing of the Supreme Court is now almost as important here in the United States as the substance of the decisions. And of course, the place where this will really count, if they really believe that, they'll move fast on the immunity case, because Americans also want to know, did Donald Trump commit alleged crimes? And can we get that case to trial? Just as can the Supreme Court can move quickly here, will they move quickly there? Another very important question. But I would have done this last week.
Yeah, so again, the most hilarious part about this is not just the fact that the liberal media is fuming over the Supreme Court not agreeing with them when it comes to the rulings, but also the fact that the Supreme Court clearly and obviously are timing their rulings in a way that benefits Trump, or AKA upholds democracy, right? Because that's actually really what they're doing, okay? Like, for example, they're moving quickly on decisions that could potentially, like, actually disenfranchise voters, okay? So when it comes to this issue right here, they're moving quickly. They ruled quickly on it. They said, okay, you know what? Trump's going to be allowed on the ballot, because if they move too slow, then he would have been kept off some ballots, okay? That would have been a big deal. You're going to be taking away people's right to vote for a candidate. Now, when it comes to the Jack Smith trial, particularly the January 6th trial, the mainstream liberal media is fuming about the fact that the Supreme Court is moving slowly on that one, right? They're slow walking that. Well, why are they slow walking it? Well, they're slow walking it because they know that an attempt to lock up a former sitting president is an attempt to disenfranchise voters, right? They know that these prosecutions against Trump are political in nature, in the sense that this is only happening because it's Trump. If it was Biden, it wouldn't be happening. So therefore, they're kind of slow walking the cases that can push the trial back, okay? That can push back a potential conviction. And it's pretty hilarious because they're actually doing the right thing. Like, they are actually really trying to give voters a chance to freely and fairly select who they want to be president of the United States. They're not trying to allow Democrats to have Trump tried and convicted before the election, which would sway the outcome of the election, okay? The Supreme Court is actually going out of their way to not be political, okay? To not try to work in favor of Democrats trying to ban their political opponents and trying to arrest their political opponents, throwing them in jail and stuff like that. Again, it's pretty fascinating what is happening, okay? The Supreme Court quite literally is single-handedly saving democracy, or saving our republic, okay? Because I know there's some people that would much rather use the term republic than democracy. I get it, okay? So, yeah, with that being said, the liberal media is fuming, okay? They're fuming about the Supreme Court saving our republic, and I want to react to more of the outrage here.
You know, Larry, the Supreme Court did not want to deal with this issue of whether or not Trump is an insurrectionist, but he keeps ginning up this insurrectionist-like rhetoric.
Of course he does. He'll never change because it's worked for him, and it may work again. You know, in the end, Jim, you can't save the people from themselves. If they're determined to reelect him after he organized that insurrection, arguably our first coup d'etat, then there's nothing to stop the people from doing that.
No, we had a coup d'etat or attempted coup d'etat with the Russia, right? That was a coup d'etat, okay? But with that being said, again, the Supreme Court didn't really speak on this idea that Trump is guilty of an insurrection. And they shouldn't, because it's not their job to weigh in on that. It's the job of Congress. And again, Congress had an opportunity to basically say that, okay, and to bar Trump from the ballot, and they chose not to. It's over with, right? But again, the mainstream liberal media can't accept that. So they're pissed and they're mad that the court is not being political, right? They want the court to be political in favor of the left. And thank God that we have a majority conservative Supreme Court, and also our judicial system as well too. It's pretty conservative, because again, this is the last institution that's standing in the way of a full-blown fascist takeover of this country by the left. Okay, so again, the Supreme Court being mostly conservative is a godsend. It really is.
Now, in particular, the legal system may intervene, but I doubt it. He'll probably, he's certainly going to be on the ballot. He's certainly going to be the Republican nominee. We'll know that for sure tomorrow if we don't already know it. And that's the way it is. You know, Donald Trump has had a run of great luck in several different dimensions. Although, Jim, both of us have been around a long time, and we both know the worm always turns. Sometimes the worm turns repeatedly during a presidential campaign. So I don't think one candidate's good luck will hold for 8 full months.
These guys, they're so desperate, bruh. They're so desperate, okay? They don't believe in democracy. They're telling you straight up, we don't believe in democracy. We're pissed that the Supreme Court is allowing it. Again, it's amazing how that works. It's amazing. He's like, well, I hope that Trump's luck runs out, right? His luck is going to run out. It's not luck. It's simply the fact that the Supreme Court, again, is the last institution in this country with some integrity. And that is why the Democrats are going to try their best to destroy the Supreme Court by trying to pack it with more liberal justices, which is all the more reason why people, conservatives, need to get out and vote to make sure that that doesn't happen, okay? You need to make sure that the Supreme Court doesn't get taken over by liberals. Because if the Supreme Court was mostly liberal, it's over, right? We would have no chance. We would already be a banana republic, okay? And if the Supreme Court was mostly liberal, it would be over, right? This country would be a totalitarian dictatorship run by the Democrats.
And what about this notion we were just talking about a few moments ago with Karen Finney and Olivia Troy, that perhaps the Democrats need a good kick in the pants here, and if the courts aren't going to bar Trump from running for office, if the courts aren't going to weigh in time as to whether or not he tried to defraud the American people in trying to overturn the election in 2020, Democrats are going to have to be motivated and get out.
Yes, and that's exactly what President Biden needs, and it's what Democrats should have already done. I think maybe this will help, although you never know with Democrats, but I think it is possible that this will assist the Biden campaign in motivating them and getting them out to work and giving money, and a broader group thinking about the difference between a Biden presidency and a Trump presidency going forward. You know, the second Trump administration, if there is one, is going to be very different than the first. It really is. And if you care about democracy and constitutionalism, then you have every right to be concerned. Notice what he did, Jim.
Amazing how these people come out here and they continue to repeat this stupid talking point about if you care about democracy, then you vote against Trump, which is hilarious to me because you're quite literally rooting to overthrow democracy, right? You're upset that the Supreme Court is not doing that. And again, this is why the whole democracy talking point, when you look at the polls, is not working, right? It's not working for Democrats, okay? They're upset. Like, why is calling Trump a threat to democracy not working? Well, because it's clearly and obviously hypocritical. Democrats don't even believe in democracy in their own party. They don't, I mean, like when you're actively coming out here advocating to have your political opponent thrown off the ballot, you are quite literally against democracy. So to turn around and point at your political opponent and say they're against democracy, it doesn't make sense. That's why the talking point isn't working, right? That's why it's not working.
Always turns an effective attack around. He's the one who has threatened democracy. He's the one who organized a potential coup d'etat, not Joe Biden. But now it's Joe Biden, according to Donald Trump, who's a threat to democracy. I'd laugh if it weren't so sad.
Well, I mean, it's true. Joe Biden is the one that's a threat to democracy, okay? I mean, listen to you talk. Listen to you talk. You guys, your side of the aisle, you're rooting to ban your political opponents. You have these politically charged persecutions against your political opponent. You're rooting to have your political opponent thrown in jail. Again, people are saying that and they're saying, no, this is not democratic. This is not how this country should work. But this is what you're doing. And it's all happening at the same time. That's the hilarious part about this, right? They're mad at the Supreme Court and the timing of the Supreme Court decisions. But at the same time, whether you look at what happened with Georgia, the classified document case, the January 6th case, Trump's business fraud case, the Me Too case with Trump, all of these cases, every single last one of them, they're happening at the same time because they are systemically coordinated, right? They're all coordinated to happen during the election year. It's not a coincidence. It's been 3 or 4 years since January 6th. And all of these cases are happening at once in an election year. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. This is an attack from the establishment to try to take out their political opponent. And the Supreme Court is the only institution that's standing in the way.
Yeah, I mean, he calls himself a dissident and so on. It is laughable. But, Larry, I mean, you and I can break this down on a news program. The rest of the mainstream media can point out the lies that he tells out on the campaign trail. But the people who are in his base aren't really tuned into that. They are taking their cues from him.
Well, we've known that for a long time, and that's how he gets millions of votes.
Well, I mean, it's not that people don't hear what you're saying. It's that what you're saying doesn't make any sense when we could clearly and obviously see what's happening. The political persecutions against